They say it takes a village to raise a child, but no one warns you what happens when that village turns its back, or worse, when it becomes the threat. I didn't always live in Alder Glen. We moved there after my husband passed away, me and my son, Eli. He was only 6, clinging to my hand, still asking if his dad was coming home soon. I picked Alder Glen because it looked safe, neat lawns, neighbors who waved, a school just blocks away. The HOA seemed strict, but back then I thought structure meant protection. Then, 2 months later, Eli collapsed on the bathroom floor. He was pale, shaking. His glucose meter read numbers I couldn't even process. That's when I learned my son had type 1 diabetes. My world became monitoring, calculating, preparing for disaster every minute of every day. When summer rolled in and the North Carolina heat soared, I bought a compact medical-grade fridge. Nothing flashy, just enough to keep his insulin stable. I bolted it under the porch in the shade so his cousin Mason could grab it quickly whenever Eli needed it. It wasn't for convenience, it was survival. But to Diane Walsh, the HOA president, it was an eyesore. Picture a woman who probably irons her socks and alphabetizes her grocery list. That's Diane. Every Thursday she'd patrol the neighborhood with her clipboard, scribbling down violations like she was leading a suburban witch hunt. She once fined a veteran for having a flag that flapped too loudly on windy days. So when she spotted Eli's fridge, she didn't ask questions. She didn't wait for the board to vote on the medical exemption I'd submitted. She acted on her own. The night it happened, I came home after a brutal double shift at the hospital. The porch looked wrong, empty. The fridge was gone, just holes where the brackets had been. I sprinted inside and found Mason sobbing on the couch, hovering over Eli. My son was limp, clammy, glucose meter blinking 423. His life was slipping away. And then Diane appeared, calm as ever, pastel polo tucked neatly into white slacks, clipboard in hand. She actually said, "I went ahead and removed that device. It violated Article 3, Section 12, external units disrupt visual harmony." I stared at her, clutching my child, trying to process how someone could sound so smug when my son was dying not 10 feet away. Thank God the paramedics arrived. They saved him. The ER doctor told me 5 more minutes and your son could have suffered brain damage, or worse. That night, sitting by his hospital bed, I made a promise. Diane Walsh was going to answer for this. The next morning, I filed charges. Not vandalism, not trespassing, attempted murder. The cops didn't laugh. They saw the photos. They heard the 911 call. That same night, Diane was served. The charge? Willful destruction of life-preserving medical equipment, endangerment of a minor. The story exploded. Local news, regional, then national. The HOA's Facebook group went dark overnight. Neighbors who used to smile and wave now crossed the street. Some whispered support privately, but none dared to say it out loud. Fear still lingered. At the emergency HOA meeting, she tried to spin it. Standing at the clubhouse podium, pastel polos gleaming under fluorescent lights, she said, "We must uphold standards. If we start making exceptions for medical devices, what's next? Porta potties on every lawn?" The silence that followed wasn't agreement. It was disgust. Not one clap, not one nod, just the sound of her power collapsing. Court day came. She showed up in her luxury sedan with 2 rolling suitcases of binders. I carried 1 backpack of medical records. She looked smug until the footage rolled. Justin, my quiet neighbor, had a security cam facing his yard. His video showed Diane pulling on gardening gloves, cutting the lock, unloading insulin vials, spraying the fridge with bleach, and dragging it into an HOA truck. her face drained of color as the prosecutor asked, "Did you think the red medical storage labels were decorative? That prescription insulin was a landscaping violation?" Her lawyer begged for a deal. Reckless endangerment, community service. I said no, no deal. Outside, protesters gathered. Parents, nurses, diabetics, holding signs, "Medical devices aren't violations," and "Could have been my child." My fight had become their fight. The jury took just 5 hours. Verdict: guilty. Attempted murder. Sentence: 3 years in prison, lifetime ban from HOA leadership, mandatory counseling, restitution. The neighborhood changed. Wooden signs appeared on lawns. "We stand with families." Kids rode bikes past my house again. Nobody dared touch Eli's new fridge, especially not the cedar sign beside it, carved with the words, "Here lives a mother who didn't let silence bury her child." 1 year later, we launched Jacob's Light, named after Eli's middle name. We've supplied over 800 households with medical fridges, monitors, and emergency kits. Parents who once felt powerless now stand together. Eli is 10 now, laughing again, playing outside. His fridge still hums on our porch, a little reminder that justice doesn't come from rules, it comes from refusing to stay quiet. So I'll ask you, if someone's rule threatened your child's life, would you bow to it? Or would you fight back? Drop your story in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe, because no clipboard should ever outweigh a child's heartbeat.